From captured Soviet light tanks to home-built prototypes that even inspired German designs, this is the story of Romania's armored forces in World War II. Today, we explore the scout tanks, frontline armor, and deadly TACAM tank destroyers that fought on the Eastern Front. The R2, originally the Czechoslovakian Panzer 35T, became Romania's most important tank at the start of World War II. At a time when the Romanian army was struggling with outdated equipment and limited industrial capacity, the R2 arrived as a modern, reliable light tank. Its 37mm main gun and decent speed gave Romania a fighting chance in the early clashes of Operation Barbarossa. Although lightly armored, the R2 performed surprisingly well against early Soviet armor like the T-26 and BT-7. Romanian crews praised its smooth suspension, good optics, and relatively high mobility across rough terrain. However, as the war progressed, it became painfully clear that the R2 could no longer stand up to T-34s or KV-1s. Even so, Romania kept the R2 in service. The R1 was a small but essential reconnaissance tankette based on the Czechoslovakian AH-4. Although lightly armored and armed only with a machine gun, its mission wasn't to fight, it was to scout. Romania used the R1 to locate Soviet positions, guide infantry, and support cavalry units operating along the wide expanses of the Eastern Front. Fast, agile, and easy to maintain, the R1 slipped through terrain where larger tanks struggled. Romanian crews valued its speed and low profile, which allowed it to evade Soviet fire. Though vulnerable to anything larger than a rifle, the R1 compensated with reliability and endurance. During Operation Barbarossa and the battles around Odessa, the French-designed R-35 entered Romanian service before the war, offering heavy armor for its size. With a thick cast hull and turret, the R-35 could shrug off most anti-tank rifles and light guns early in the conflict. However, its biggest weakness was the outdated 37mm short-barrel cannon, far too weak to penetrate newer Soviet tanks. Romania used the R-35 extensively in 1941, during the push into Bessarabia and Ukraine. Its slow speed and cramped interior frustrated crews, but they appreciated the superb armor protection. After heavy losses and repeated Soviet encounters, Romania realized the tank needed an upgrade. This led to the famous R-35/45 modernization, where the tank received a much stronger 45mm cannon, dramatically improving its battlefield utility. The upgraded version could finally threaten Soviet armor. The R-35 is remembered as the tank that protected Romanian infantry, absorbing punishment and providing fire support when newer tanks were unavailable. It may not have been fast or modern, but it was tough, reliable, and essential. The R-35-45 was Romania's clever attempt to modernize an obsolete tank. By replacing the weak French cannon with a captured Soviet 45mm gun, engineers radically improved its firepower. This innovative hybrid transformed the tank's battlefield capability almost overnight. Crews immediately noticed the difference. The new gun could penetrate early T-34s from the side and punch through medium Soviet armor at closer ranges. The R-35-45 became a second-life weapon, proving Romania's ingenuity during a time of severe material shortages. Despite its small turret and limited speed, the upgraded tank became a crucial asset during defensive actions in 1943 to 44. It fought during the retreats through Ukraine and Moldova, providing fire support against Soviet infantry and light vehicles. The R-35-45 stands today as an example of wartime necessity driving innovation, a reminder that even old machines can become deadly with the right upgrades. The TACAM T-60 was Romania's first major attempt to convert a captured Soviet vehicle into a functional tank destroyer. Based on the chassis of the Soviet T-60 light tank, the TACAM Tun Antikar pe Afet Mobil program was born from necessity. By 1943, Romania desperately needed a weapon capable of fighting modern Soviet armor, yet had almost no industrial capacity to build tanks from scratch. Engineers removed the original turret and mounted a powerful captured Soviet 76.2 mm ZIS-3 gun on the chassis. They added a simple but sloped open-top shield to protect the crew. This transformation created a surprisingly effective tank destroyer for its size. In combat, the TACAM T-60 excelled at ambush tactics. It could hide behind tree lines, fire a deadly shot, and relocate before Soviet forces reacted. While its armor was thin and its open top left crew vulnerable to artillery and aircraft, the firepower it delivered made it invaluable in 1944 during the defensive battles in Moldova. Though Romania built only around 34 units, the TACAM T-60 represents the country's ingenuity under pressure, a machine born from captured parts, battlefield necessity, and determination to survive against overwhelming odds. The TACAM R2 was Romania's most powerful improvised tank destroyer of the war. Built on the chassis of the R2 Panzer 35T, this conversion aimed to give new life to outdated tanks by arming them with captured Soviet long-barreled guns, the same 76.2 mm used on many Red Army vehicles. The redesign replaced the R2's turret with an armored open-top fighting compartment, offering the crew more space to operate the heavy gun. This combination created a vehicle capable of punching through medium Soviet tanks, especially from defensive positions. In battle, the TACAM R2 was typically deployed as a mobile anti-tank gun. Romanian commanders learned to use it carefully, firing from concealed areas and withdrawing before counterattack. Though not suited for front-line charges, it could devastate enemy armor when used intelligently. As Soviet armor became heavier later in the war, the TACAM R2 struggled against T-34-85s and IS-series tanks, but it remained a vital asset until the end of Romania's involvement on the Eastern Front. After Romania switched sides in August 1944, surviving TACAM R2s even saw combat against German forces. It stands as one of Romania's most successful wartime engineering projects. The Mareșal MO4 is one of the most fascinating armored vehicles in Romanian history and one of the most influential. This tiny, heavily sloped tank destroyer prototype was unlike anything else on the battlefield. Compact, low profile, and armed with a powerful 75 mm Resitsa anti-tank gun, it was designed to kill Soviet tanks while being almost impossible to hit. What makes the MO4 truly remarkable is the German engineers who inspected it were deeply impressed. Many historians believe the Mareșal directly inspired the design of the German Hetzer, with its similar size, shape, and extreme sloped armor. The MO4 prototype demonstrated agility, strong firepower, and remarkable protection for such a small vehicle. Its sharply angled armor could deflect rounds far heavier than its weight class should allow. The tank was cheap to build, easy to maintain, and perfectly suited for ambush tactics. Unfortunately, Romania's industrial limitations and the chaotic final year of the war prevented full production. Only prototypes were built before Romania switched sides in 1944. Even so, the Mareșal remains a symbol of what Romanian engineering could achieve, a small tank destroyer decades ahead of its time. The Mareșal M05 was the refined evolution of the earlier M04 prototype. This version incorporated numerous improvements: better suspension, stronger armor layout, and enhanced internal organization. It represented Romania's push to create a mass-production tank destroyer capable of rivaling even German models. The M05 was still small and low to the ground, making it difficult for enemy gunners to spot. Its 75mm Reșiță gun remained one of the most powerful anti-tank weapons Romania fielded, capable of defeating T-34s and even heavier Soviet armor at closer ranges. Compared to the M04, the M05 featured better mobility, more efficient armor angles, and improved maintenance access. Engineers envisioned hundreds of Mareșal vehicles forming Romania's future armored backbone. Sadly, the plan never materialized, as the front collapsed in 1944. The factories producing Mareșal prototypes were damaged, and the political situation changed rapidly after Romania switched sides. Despite this, the M05 is celebrated today as Romania's most advanced armored design, a tank destroyer with world-class potential that arrived just a bit too late to change history. The T-26 was one of the most common Soviet tanks Romania captured during the early years of Operation Barbarossa. Although outdated by 1941, the T-26 remained widely used by Soviet infantry divisions, and many were abandoned or knocked out during rapid retreats. Romania quickly realized that these captured tanks could reinforce its armored divisions without needing new production. Crews appreciated the T-26's simplicity. It was easy to repair, easy to operate, and had decent firepower with its 45mm gun. Romanian T-26s served mostly in secondary roles: infantry support, anti-partisan operations, and defensive positions on the long eastern front lines. Against modern Soviet armor, they were outmatched, but against infantry and light vehicles, they performed well. By 1943, surviving T-26s were heavily worn and mechanically exhausted, but Romania used them as long as possible due to chronic equipment shortages. Although the T-26 is not Romanian in origin, it became part of Romania's wartime story, a reminder of how captured equipment kept the army running during desperate times. The T-60 was one of the most widely captured Soviet light tanks used by Romania during World War II. Small, fast, and mechanically simple, the T-60 was never meant to fight heavy armor. Instead, it served mainly as a reconnaissance and infantry support tank. When Romania captured over 100 of them in 1941-42, they gained a reliable vehicle that could be quickly repaired and returned to service. Romanian units found the T-60 useful because it consumed little fuel, required minimal maintenance, and could maneuver across rough terrain where heavier tanks struggled. Although lightly armored and armed with a 20mm cannon, it was effective against infantry, trucks, and light positions. Many captured T-60s later became the foundation for Romania's own tank destroyer program, including the famous TACAM T-60. But the unmodified versions continued serving in reconnaissance and support roles until they were gradually replaced or converted. Even if outclassed by 1943, the T-60 played a crucial role for Romania by filling gaps in armored strength during the early years of the Eastern Front.